But again, I want to draw your attention to Romans chapter 7, verses 18 through 25. Pia, this morning, my key verse, I believe, is going to be verse 23. So you guys can zoom in, amen, on 23, but we're going to try to do a little something, amen, with this text, amen. Again, that's Romans chapter 7, verses 18 through 25, and kind of focus in on verse 23. 18 says, "For I know that in me there is in my flesh dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which good is good I find not." 19 says, "For the good that I would I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do." 20 says, "Now if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me." 21 says, "I find then a law, that when I would do good, evil is present with me." Brother Walt, 22 says, "For I delight in the law of God after the inward man." 23 is a key verse. It said, "But I see another law in my members."
Yes, sir.
Goes on, Sister Harriet says, "Warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members." 24 says, "Oh, wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, with the mind, I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh, with the law of sin." 23 again, "But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members." This morning, if I could, just for a little bit, I want to talk about the war within. Amen. You all may be. Amen. The war within. Yeah, the war within. Mr. Eric, when you begin to look at wars, we have to understand that wars are nothing new to us. Actually, when you begin to look at wars, Minister Heron, they have been going on since the beginning of time.
Right about it.
Sister Jean, wars have been going on before you and I were born. Brother Rodney, if the Lord delays his coming, wars will still be going on after we are long gone. Yeah, when you begin to look at wars, I'm very troubled. I'm very disturbed. I'm very dismayed by wars. But how many people know, Minister Jim, when you begin to look at the Bible lets us know in Matthew 24:6 that there will be wars and rumors of wars. The Bible tells us that these things must happen. These things shall happen.
Yes, sir, Reverend.
No, we can't get around it. At some point, and we're living in a day and time, the United States, we're in all kinds of wars. We're fighting over here, we're fighting over there. And if this fella that's in office right now keeps it up,
Yes, sir.
we're going to be fighting some more wars.
Talk, Reverend.
Yeah, when you begin to look at wars, what is a war? War is an organized and often prolonged armed conflict. Yeah, when you begin to look at wars, you have to understand there's all kinds of wars. There's something called Cold Wars. There's something called border wars. We even know award wars. Yeah, there's even something called, hopefully we never have to get into, called nuclear wars. How many people even know, Brother Ricky, that there's even religious wars? Yeah, but I believe the wars that probably disturb me the most of the water is something called civil wars. Yeah, when you begin to look at civil wars, you have to understand a civil war is people from the same nation.
Yes, sir.
People from the same country.
Come on now.
Who's fighting one another. And I need to pause right here just for 1 second, Brother Andre, and tell us this morning that if we're not comfortable, the devil will have us having civil wars with one another.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if we're not careful, the devil will allow us to have civil wars in our relationships.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he'll allow us to have a civil wars in our households. He'll allow us to have civil wars in our marriages.
Yes, sir.
And can I tell you, if we're not careful, Ministry County, he will also even allow us
If we're not careful.
to have civil wars even inside of the church.
Yes, sir. If we're not careful.
Right about it.
Yeah, when you begin to look out throughout the course of history, Greg, there were all kinds of different civil wars. There was a civil war in Korea between the North and the South Koreans. When you begin to look at Vietnam, Brother Greg, there was a war between the North and the South Vietnamese.
Yes, sir.
When you begin to look at even in Germany, there was a civil war between the East and the West Germans, so much to the point, little Walter, that they had to put a wall in between them. But even in this country, the great United States, we even had a war called the American Civil War. Yeah, when you begin to look at the American Civil War, it was one of the worst wars that this country, this world has ever known. When you begin to look at the American Civil War, it was the most bloodiest and the most deadliest of all wars, Brother Ricky. When you begin to look at this war, it cost 750,000 to 1 million people to lose their lives. Yeah, there was a civil war going on right in here. Yeah, when you begin to look at this war, you have to understand this war was between the North, which was called the Union, and the South, that was called the Confederates. Yeah, we have to be careful again. If we're not careful, we'll find ourselves in some civil wars.
Yes, sir.
But today, if I could, Sister Sydney, I don't really want to talk about the civil war that took place in Korea.
Yes, sir.
Between the North and the South Koreans. Yeah, I don't even really want to talk about the civil war that took place in Vietnam.
Come on now.
Between the North and the South Vietnamese. I don't even want to talk about the civil war that took place in Germany between the East and the West Germans. I don't even entirely want to talk about the civil war that took place right in this country.
Come on, Reverend. What you want to talk?
But today I want to talk about the civil war that's taking place
Come on.
on the inside of you and on the inside of me.
Help yourself.
Have to understand, as men and women of God, we're always going through a civil war. Have to understand, as men and women of God, there's always a battle of good versus evil.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, when you begin to look at us, there's always a battle of Satan versus God. That's why you have a battle going on in the inside of you. Yes, sometimes there's a war going on with North Eric and South Eric. Sometimes there's a war going on with West and East Eric. Is there anybody here this morning, you look back and you can realize the time when you were warring with yourself? But I want to tell somebody here this morning that God came to deliver us from these things. He comes to make sure that we're not having a civil war on the inside of us. Yeah, the war within. Within means the inner struggles. Within means the battles that you might have physically, the battles you might have mentally, but sometimes the battles that we have even spiritually. Is there anybody here this morning you've ever had to battle spiritually? You wanted to do one thing, but your flesh said do something different. I don't know who I'm talking to here this morning, but somebody you had a struggle last night. Your flesh wanted to do one thing, but your spirit man said do something else. Somebody, you didn't want to come to church this morning because your flesh said just stay home and watch TV. But your spirit man said get on up because God has something for you in the house of God this morning. Is there anybody here this morning can testify like me that sometimes you got to battle the battle within?
Come on now. Come on now.
War within.
Every day.
And to look at this text. You find a man by the name of the Apostle Paul. Sister Vicky, he wrote this text to the Romans. He wrote this text to a group of people that he had never seen before. He wrote this text to a group of people that he did not even know. He wrote this text that you're reading here today called Romans to a church he had not founded. But when you begin to look at this place called Rome, he wanted to go to Rome. He had a strong desire to go to Rome. Why? Because when you begin to look at Rome, it was one of the places that everybody wanted to visit. Brother Rodney, everybody wanted to get to Rome. When you begin to look at Rome, Sister Valley, it was kind of like the New York City of its time. It was the Washington, D.C. of its time. But you have to understand, when you begin to look at Rome, it was filled with millions of people. But many of the people were slaves. And when he wrote this letter, as he sent this letter, he was writing this letter to introduce himself to these people.